Tasmatiya bahya evan sikkitabam ditte dittamattam bhavisati sute sutamattam bhavisati mute mutamattam bhavisati viññāte viññātamattam bhavisati evan ite bahya sikkitabam yatokote bahya ditte sute mute viññāte viññātamattam bhavisati tato tvam bahya natena yato tvam bahya natena tato tvam bahya na tatta yato tvam bahya na tatta tato tvam bahya nevaida na huram na ubhayamantarena esavanto dukkassati. Then bahya, thus must you train yourself. In the seen there will be just the seen. In the heard, just the heard. In the sense, just the sensed. In the cognized, just the cognized. That is how, O bahya, you must train yourself. Now, when bahya, in the seen, there will be to you just the seen. In the heard, just the cognized. Then bahya, you will have no thereby. When you have no thereby, then bahya, you will have no therein. As you bahya will have no therein, it follows that you will have no here or beyond or midway between. That is just the end of ill. The first part of the exhortation presents succinctly the sum total of sense restraint, while the latter part interprets the philosophy behind it. The sense restraint consists in stopping short at the level of sense data without being led astray by them. He who succeeds in this has truly comprehended the nature of sense data, so that he no longer thinks in terms of them, na tena, no thereby, na tatta, no therein. He has thus transcended the superstitions of the grammatical structure, as also the verbal dichotomy, nevaida, na huram, na ubhayamantarena, neither here, nor beyond, nor midway between. In short, he has attained the goal. As for bahya, he did attain the goal, and that almost instantaneously, since he has developed his spiritual faculties to such an extent in his own religious system that we are told in the sutta, he even estranged the illusion of being an arhat before he came to the Buddha. The consummation of the training in sense restraint, therefore, consists in the ability to refrain from thinking in terms of manana, the data of sensory experience. The chimerical and elusive nature of sense data is such that as soon as one thinks in terms of them, one is estranged from reality. This fact is brought out in the following verse in the Davyatupassana Sutta of the Sutta Nipata. Yena hi manyanti tatotang hoti anyata tanghi tassa mosa hoti mosa dhammangi ittara. In whatever egoistic terms they think of an object, ipso facto it becomes otherwise, and herein verily lies its falseness, the puerile deceptive phenomenon that it is. It is this same relentless tyranny of the empirical consciousness that is metaphorically put across in the parable of Vepachitta discussed above. Manjana, imaginings, which stem from the train of Prapancha, centering on the ego, are themselves even called Prapancha, as we have already pointed out. Hence, to resort to Manjana is to identify oneself with the sense data, as suggested by the term Thammayo. No sooner does one clutch at these data with manjana, imaginings, than they slip into unreality. This is most probably the philosophical implication of the well-known simple of Buddha, in which the aggregate of perceptions, sanya, is compared to a mirage. The typical illustration of illusiveness, wide supra, thus percepts are elusive, while the concepts of which we reach out for and grasp them are delusive. Since identification with sense data results in the vain quest of papancha, one desists therefrom, holds oneself aloof, thammayo, and attempts to weave these data objectively. As the Sappurisa Sutta of Majjhima Nikaya explains in detail, this training ultimately enables one to rid oneself of all proclivities to imaginings, manjana, after the attainment of cessation of perceptions and sensations. Sanya Vedaita Nirodha Samapatti. Sappurisocha ko bhikkhave iti patisanchikkati neva sanya nasanyayatana samapattiyapi ko attammayata buddha bhagavata yena yenahi manyanti tatotang hoti anyatati so attammayatang yeva antarang taritva taya neva sanya nasanyayatana samapattiya neva attanukanseti na parang vambeti ayampiko bhikkave sappurisa dhammo punacha param bhikkave sappuriso sabbaso neva sanya nasanyayatanam samatikkama sanya vedaita nirodham upasampajja viharati papanchayassa disva asava parikkayapenti ayampi bhikkave bhikkhu nakinchi manyati nakuhinchi manyati nakenchi manyati. But a good man reflects thus, monks, lack of desire, non-identification, even for the plane of neither perception nor non-perception has been spoken of by the Lord. For whatever they imagine it to be done, thereby it becomes otherwise. He, having made lack of desire, non-identification, itself the main thing, neither exalts himself on account of that attainment of the plane of neither perception nor non-perception, nor disparages others. This too, monks, is Dhamma of a good man. And again, monks, a good man, by passing quite beyond the plane of neither perception nor non-perception, enters on and abides in the cessation of perception and feelings. And when he has seen by means of wisdom, his cankers are caused to be destroyed. And monks, this monk does not imagine he is aught or anywhere or
to Venerable Bahir, it is not mere sense restraint, but a fairly advanced state of meditation that Buddha is recommending Venerable Bahir. So we can see that he already has arrived such kind of a capacity. That's why immediately Buddha is telling it to Venerable Bahir. So that potential was there already with him, as Venerable Katukunda Jnananda Thero highlights. So even before meeting with the Buddha, so this Venerable Bahir had that capacity. But now Buddha pointing out its importance. So whenever you are restraining like that, when Bahir in the scene, there will be to you just the scene. That means you are not in what you have seen, and you are not in thinking that I have seen. Rather, you have maintained kind of an atammeta. So tammeta means that you are identifying. Suppose that you are seeing a beautiful thing. Immediately you are being attracted to that and you become that. You absorb to that. So you are entertaining that, enjoying that, you are thinking about that. You are infatuated in it, delighted in it. So that means you have become that. So that end you are very much like identified. Tammaya. On the other hand, when you are seeing, if you start enjoying and being elated with that, assume it's producing a very good, pleasurable feeling, and you feel elated with it, and you start thinking and all proliferation going on. So probably you are making a self here, thinking that I am the one seeing, I am the one seeing. But if you are not doing that, seeing is just mere seeing. So you were able to stop at that very sensory level. Seeing has happened, but your mind is uninvolved. Your mind remained calm. Your mind remained undisturbed, uninvolved, mixing up with what you have seen. So the mind's silence is intact. Same thing you can think of the sounds, smells, taste, and tangibles. And even when a thought comes, it's very much like an outside thought, and it may come and go, but your mind remain calm. So if we are able to do that, then the argument is that the next stage that Buddha explained here is when you have no thereby, then Bahya you will have no therein. As you Bahya will have no therein, it follows that you will have no here, no beyond, or no midway between. That is just the end of ill. So that means you are not making I, you are not making a self, you are not making an individual at any ends. No at the object level, no at the, say, at your level, at your internal sense level, no at the external sense-based level. And not even in between. So I is not made up, a self is not made up at any end. So you are very much like, mind is very much like independent of these sensory data. So whatever the sense impingement has happened, but your mind is quite independent from that process. So this is the end of suffering. Now, this is something actually as the practitioners we should try to achieve. It is not a mere theory. We need to understand it is not mere very advanced theory. Rather, through the meditation, we should try to achieve it. And another interesting point highlighted here is that when we start thinking, whenever we have no sense restraint, we start thinking, and then actually we are sort of getting into proliferation, getting into manyana, that means imaginings, conceiving, all that are possible. And basically, whatever the sense data has caused you to promote some sort of thinking, and you have become someone, you have become something, and maybe you have attached to what you have seen, what you have heard, what you have cognized. So basically, that the independent state of your mind, anisita state of mind, unattached state of mind, unassociated, non-grasping state of mind is no more. You have become someone, or you have become something. So the Buddha very beautifully highlight even a very extremely beautiful, very calm, tranquil, sublime samadhi. Even such state, you should not identify with it. So that's what the highlighted in the Sappurisa Sutta, where even what we call neva sanya na sanyayatana samapattiyapiko atammeta vutta bhagavata. One should not identify even with that very refined arupa samadhi. So typically when someone has achieved that, since its beauty, since its blissful, calm, serene state, one might can easily get attached to it. One might expect it. One might want it again and again, to dwell in it again and again. One may basically yearning for that. But how about keeping the mind even unattached at that state, not identifying even in that state? So that is a very higher level teaching or advice that Buddha has given, even neva sanya na sanyayatana samapattiya pikho atamyata utta bhagavata. And Buddha has instructed one should not even identify this neva sanya na sanyayatana. So no point of talking about the other samadhi, other jhana, and none of them are worthy of attaching, none of them are worthy of identifying. So here we can see the non-identification. Atamyata is fairly highlighted. So typically, driven by bhavatanha, driven by desires, driven by a kind of a becoming process, we easily get trapped in a kind of a motivation. We easily get trapped in some sort of a, say, desire, a motivation, an inclination, a sort of, I want to become this, I want to become that, I want to be fulfilled, I want to become an arahant, I want to become a doctor, I want to become an engineer. So all that are representing tammeta. You want to become something, you want to identify with something. In the present moment, you have some sort of an unsatisfaction, little bit of frustration. So you want to become something different. You're not contented in the present moment. Rather, you expect some sort of an identification with something different. So it can happen mentally, either to a separate state, a kind of a mental level. Say you want to become a beautiful person, you want to become a radical person, you want to become a rebellious person, I want to become a doctor, I want to become an engineer, I want to be a good person, I want to become an arahant. All these are, in a way, sometimes when we have certain motivation, a wholesome motivation, it's also necessary. The chanda, when it is a kusala chanda, a wholesome kind of a desire, it actually motivates us. That's why even Buddha recommends it as a chanda iddipada. But here we are talking something more advanced, where when one reaches an unattached state of mind, even that sort of a chanda is abandoned. So you are utterly in the present moment, not trying to identify at any level. You don't want to become anyone. Rather, you are completely contented in the present moment. So complete satisfaction, kind of a fulfillment, being here, just be. Not expecting any other state, not expecting any other moment, or any sort of a desire-driven state. And basically, here we can say you are becoming desireless. So that is why it's called appanihita. You have no panidhi, you have no wish, you have no intention, no chetana. So all the chetana, all the volition are subsided, all are faded away. You are utterly in the present moment. The consciousness has ceased. Ceased in the sense that conditioned consciousness has ceased. So mind become sort of unattached, non-grasping, not holding on to anything. And therefore, consciousness, we can say, doesn't have a footing. Consciousness doesn't have a footing. Consciousness doesn't have a home. Typically, form aggregate is one home of the consciousness. Feeling aggregate is one home of consciousness. Perception aggregate is a home for consciousness. Formations aggregate is a home for perceptions. Now here, at this level, there is no home. It's a kind of a homeless situation for the consciousness. Aniketasari. Sometimes Buddha used the term aniketasari. So the consciousness becomes homeless. He has nowhere to stay. He has nowhere to establish. He has nowhere to find a footing. So then it becomes appatithita, unestablished, unfounded or ungrounded sort of a state. So if we are able to achieve something like that, so then we can say, okay, there is no suffering, because suffering arises when the consciousness is fairly found some sort of a footing, kind of a ground, and attached to something and sort of tangled with something. So such kind of a tanglement is not there. Consciousness doesn't have a footing. So therefore, it's utterly freed. So these are very interesting areas that we are going through. You need fair amount of vipassana to understand or experience these things. Otherwise, this become a mere logical argument. But the vipassana is capable of at least providing you this kind of an experience for a short period of time. We can't say that every immediately everybody may have all these capacities, but slowly one can achieve it at a very short period. Then slowly one can understand it, recognize it, appreciate it, dwell in it, and then slowly he may understand, okay, I can just be there. If I am making any kind of a sankhara while there, if I am making any kind of an intention there, I will lose that state. Any intention, any thoughts, any doubts, entertaining while there is a hazard, is a danger, is a hindrance. But while there, if you are able to maintain just a silent mind, just an unattached mind, feeling like everything is available, feeling like everything has achieved, feeling utterly contented, then we are very much like settled. Mind has settled. Mind has basically calmed down, tranquiled, and you may be experiencing the stillness. Okay, I think we can wind up from that point. And since it is some interesting point, I don't want to move from that. So if you have any question related to today's this short paragraph and the comments that I made, so you can now ask the questions.
Authorized announcer.
Yeah.
We have 6 questions today.
Right.
Question number 1 from Dhamma Sermon question. Dear Bhante, much merit for your efforts and giving us insights from the book by Katukurunde Mahathero. This is the first time we got some understanding of Prapancha in a simple way, which we can link to our own thoughts and workings of the mind. The more I learn about Prapancha, the more I find most of our lives are spent on Prapancha and in the fantasy world feeding Prapancha. We can identify Prapancha in the gross form as per your example, but once you start doing that, it becomes very fine and sometimes I cannot clearly see. This is Prapancha and this is not Prapancha.
Mm-hmm.
This is present moment thoughts based on my senses. Can you give us some guidance on how to separate and observe these thoughts practically in a continuous manner? With metta, that's the end of the question.
Yeah, you are quite correct. So at the beginning, we may start recognizing some gross form of prapancha. So those are intruding kind of thoughts, very gross kind of thoughts, and you can easily recognize them. But still, you may understand, okay, certain flow is still happening. Some underneath thoughts are there. They are very subtle. Still, that flow is happening. Even though that gross form of prapancha is not there, still some kind of a attenuated thinking, very slight thinking is still available. I mean, your continued practice is the one capable of even eliminating that, erasing that, and coming to a complete silence. So there is no any other, immediate solution. Rather, it's a matter of further and further dwelling in this unattached state of mind, unassociated, unattached, anisthita state of mind. More and more we become familiar with it, even though subtle thinking become weaker and weaker. And there may be situations that you are experiencing complete silence. So don't worry, you are in the correct path. So one day, as we are maturing in the practice, you may be able to even overcome this subtle thinking.
Question number 2 of 7 is again on the Dhamma sermon. Dear Bhante, is Sakkaya Ditthi a form of prapancha? Appreciate if you can explain how we understand the formation of this misunderstanding. Much merits for your service with metta. That's the end.
Yeah, we can say so. So as we already discussed in the Yavakalapi Sutta, Asmiti bhikkhave papanchita meta. Ayang ahang asmiti papanchita meta. Rupi bhavissanti papanchita metang. Arupi bhavissanti papanchita metang. So likewise, Buddha continue to explain. So any form of identification, any form of self-centered thinking is a papancha. So Sakkaya Ditthi is where either you identify body, any sort of a form, any sort of a physicality as yourself, or it belongs to you, or you are in it, or it is in you. So whatever the way, all those four different possibilities of Sakkaya Ditthi, which relates with the form aggregate, actually are types of papancha. Similarly, the feelings aggregate, similarly the perceptions, formations, and the consciousness. So even this very subtle thought, as Buddha mentioned, asmi, ahang asmi, this is I am. So even that subtle thought is a form of papancha. So therefore, Sakkaya Ditthi also is a very, fundamental level of papancha. So when we start building on that, start brooding on that, developing on that, tangled in it, and we add more and more thinking onto it, and ultimately utterly trapped in it. You are correct.
Question number 3 of 7. Swaminatha, you can hear me clearly? I need to...
Yes, but with a little less sound, but I can hear.
Okay. This is question number 3 of 7. That's a general question. Dear Venerable Sir, many thanks for detailed explanation of the Dhamma. Thoughts appear to be a hindrance in the quest for Nibbana, and in my experience during meditation, its intrusion seems detrimental to maintaining stillness of the mind in awareness of the present moment, because of its tendency to drag one's focus to proliferation into the past and into the future. However, you also mentioned how incisive thought processing skill cultivates during meditation, helping in problem-solving, creativity, etc. Except for using thought in mundane, worldly, although useful tasks, are thoughts of any use or benefit to the yogi in seeking Nibbana at all? Theruvan Saranai, that's the end of the question.
Yeah, your argument is correct. So basically, what we are thinking most of the time are not useful. As you rightly mentioned, there may be certain useful thoughts when we are wisely thinking, properly thinking, we are handling it through yoniso manasikara, then we say, okay, it's proper thinking. So that's why Buddha sometimes advise, okay, monks, if you want to discuss, okay, discuss only on these matters. There are 10 subjects that he refer. Okay, talk about the appichata, having less, possessing less, and then the contentment, being happy, contented, santuttita, and developing effort in the practice, in the Dhamma, and having faith, having sila, having samadhi, developing panya. So all that, I mean, whatever, if you are positively, correctly thinking, that those may be useful. But as we are continuing the practice more and more, so one has to enjoy the silence. Properly, it's called in the, if you can read the Vitakka Santana Sutta, there Buddha's sort of advice is, when it is necessary, he can think. When it is not necessary, he can keep the mind silent. So the complete controllability is there onto the thinking. Vitakka Vasita. It's kind of a mastery of thinking. Mastery of thinking means under your control that the mind works in a way. Thinking works. When it is necessary, you can think. When not necessary, you can keep it quiet. So if we can arrive this, that is much better.
Question number 4 of 8. This is mindful sitting. During sitting practice, I start observing the breath and the different characteristics of in-breath and out-breath. Soon the breath settles down and becomes subtle and sometimes very faint to observe. It seems like I enter into a very spacious awareness and body feels very light and calm. After 5 to 10 minutes in this calmness, thoughts start flowing in and I get distracted with these thoughts and end up in the gross breath again. I seem to have 2 options to improve this situation. Go back to observing the subtle sensations of the breath or of the breath or body, or observe the thoughts. Should I experiment on both possibilities, or is there some guidance from Venerable Sir? Much merits for your valuable service with metta. That's the end of the question.
Actually, both might give you the same answer. Now, say you are observing the bodily phenomena, so they also give you enough understanding, generates fair amount of wisdom, and there may be a situation that all of them might disappear, so that mind become clear. On the other hand, if you start watching the thoughts, your mind, there are also thoughts come and go, and you understand some wisdom, develop some wisdom through that, and ultimately thoughts completely disappear, and you may arrive at the spaciousness. So both may produce the same result. Either you give prominence to Kayanupassana or either you give prominence to Chittanupassana, doesn't matter. It will produce the same result. So you can experiment both. So it depends on your preference. Some people more prefer to be with the Kayanupassana and get more wisdom through that. Some others, they prefer to observe the mind and understand intricacies of the mind, and they prefer to observe mind more. So it's up to you, and both are beneficial and both have very much the same potential.
Question number 5 of 8. This Dhamma sermon question again. Dear Bhante, thank you for the great explanations from the book Concept and Reality and introducing the prapancha and associated phenomena in our mind. Prapancha is such a fundamental issue in our path to liberation. Is it beneficial if we look at this practically within ourselves and guard our mind against them? Even we all cannot participate in retreats and meditation practice, we can easily try to protect the 5 precepts during day-to-day life. Similar to identifying unintended lies and empty discussions to improve our precepts, shouldn't we identify at least gross form of prapancha within us and try to discontinue these trends? Appreciate if Bhante can give us some easily identifiable areas of this prapancha influx. With metta, that's the end of the question.
Yeah, totally agree. So basically, this is one must to do. So if you are into practice, if you are particularly into Vipassana practice, so you must understand the importance of calming down papancha. What we call papancha vupasama. Papancha vupasama means that you understood its danger, the danger in overthinking, proliferation, rumination, all that you have understood its danger. And if you are able to minimize it, reduce it, you may understand what a kind of a relief that you are experiencing. Prapancha is the one, completely taking us to wrong conclusions and wrong inferential or deducted information. So ultimately even get into arguments and quarrels, etc., etc. Say, for example, you had someone might simply ignored you. Probably he didn't notice you. But our mind can make a story out of that. Why did he ignore me? Is it proper to do like that? I am in higher rank than him. I am more senior than him. Can he behave like this? So likewise, you can keep on thinking. And this example is actually related to the conceit, that you are comparing yourself with another person. So the conceit related prapancha are available. Similarly, you may start thinking more into the craving side. I want this, I want that. Say that you are thinking of buying a car, and you are thinking further and further on that. You are imagining about it. You are finding more and more details. You are browsing the web. And so you are fantasizing about buying that car. So all that is prapancha. Here the motivation has come through the craving, tanha. And sometimes you have a nice idea, or you have some sort of a conclusion, your own kind of a view. Based on that also, you can argue with someone, you can think of someone or something with respect to that particular absorbed, adhered view, what we call the ditti prapancha. Particularly about the spirituality, about the Dhamma, we can have even more and more thinking. But that is also a type of prapancha. So more we understand its danger, so your duty is to safeguard your mind, not get into overthinking, not get into conceptual proliferation. And the first level of relief is the body awareness. As much as possible, you are trying to be mindful with the body, various bodily processes, so that you're not promoting prapancha, you're not promoting too much thinking, overthinking, which is happening in the mind. Instead, you are paying attention to your body. Body awareness is improved. The mindfulness with the body is improved, so that the prapancha are fairly fade away.
Question number 6 of 9. This is a general question. Dear Bhante, does confidence mean Shraddha? That's the end of the question.
Just confidence.
Yes.
Actually, Saddha has different states. At the beginning, you merely have the faith, which is not really factual, but you simply believe. So you believe, okay, Buddha has mentioned like this, so it should be correct. So Buddha has never lied. Buddha is a good teacher. So you simply believe, but not yet that you experience what Buddha has said. But you are simply believing what he has said. And you have heard about the mindfulness, you have heard about effort, you have heard about samadhi, you have heard about wisdom. But you haven't yet experienced them, but you believe his Dhamma. So similarly, there are people who are practicing and you believe in them. So if one practice, okay, these are achievable, you believe in them, but you yourself haven't practiced. So this is one level of saddha. But when you yourself get into practice, so slowly, you are trying to internalize what Buddha has mentioned. So Dhamma is now being practiced, and you are now trying to develop spiritual qualities, we can say spiritual faculties, saddha, viriya, sati, samadhi, panya, the faith, effort, mindfulness, concentration, wisdom, all these good qualities, now you are developing. As you develop them, you can experience them within you. They are no more external. They are no more superficial. They are no more simply a hearsay. Rather, they are available in your mind. Now you can experience them. They are very much like tangible things to you now. Now you have another form of saddha, which is more factual. These are based on some concrete facts. You yourself enjoy them. You yourself experience them. It's not a simple, superficial belief. Rather, you are now experiencing them. Now you have a more grounded, factual, strong kind of saddha. So therefore, Buddha, the saddha in the Dhamma is like this. At the beginning, it is necessary, since we not yet touch them, since we not yet have them, since we not yet experience them. But here we are simply believing. But later, you have them. You can experience them. You can touch them. So then it becomes more and more verifiable saddha, verifiable facts. And then you have a strong saddha, strong faith towards the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. Can't hear you, Chamila.
Sorry. So question number 7 and 8 of 9, they are both written by the same person and they look to be connected. So I'll
Right.
just read them out together. It's a Dhammasaman question. Dear Bhante, in the Bahya Sutta, did Bahya identify the object through the senses? Assume happens automatically, but he didn't identify and proliferate. How did he achieve this non-identification and not cling, etc.? So the next
One
one
moment.
is...
Wait.
Yeah.
So that is the advice that Buddha has given to him. So you stop identifying with them. So probably Bahya had that potential, but Buddha has catalyzed that. Buddha has promoted that. Okay, now Bahya, you maintain your mind very much at the middle. Don't allow it to go to that end. What is that end? That is the external sense base. Say, if we take an example, say you are seeing a beautiful flower. Now, typically what happens? You start looking at it. It's very, very beautiful. You are attracted to that. You start looking at further. You are taking even slight marks in it. You now want to go towards it. You want to smell it. You want to touch it. You want to pluck it. Now, that means you are there. You have become that. Now, advice to the Bahya is now don't do that. You may have seen it, but stop at mere seeing. Don't allow the mind to get tangled in it. Don't allow mind to get sort of thinking in it, thinking about it. So if you start thinking about it, that means you are becoming that. You become tammaya with it. You are identifying with it. So the advice is from the Buddha is don't do that. Don't make it tammaya, don't identify with it. Rather, keep yourself completely separated from that sense object. Yeah, next part, what's it, Shamila?
Yeah, so the next part is further to my earlier question, the non-identification of objects. Does one need to achieve state of dispassion, disenchantment after seeing impermanence, etc., through the meditation practice if one is to maintain this calm consciousness in the present moment? Thank you, Bhante, for valuable teaching. That's it.
Yeah. Actually, it is not that you are purposely generating. Rather, it's a result of the practice. So I invite you to read the Na Chetana Karaniya Sutta available in the Anguttara Nikaya. It's a very beautiful causal reaction happening. It's a kind of dependent process. So when you have, say, what you call, when you have sila, then you have the non-regret. You have less regret. You are not regretting at all. And when you are like that, then basically what we call you feel happy. And as a result of that, your mind gets concentrated. So when the mind is concentrated, okay, you can see things properly. When you can see things properly, then automatically nibbida viraga would happen. Disenchantment and dispassion would happen when you have yathabhuta jnanadassa, when you have thorough understanding of the true reality of phenomena. So it is not that you are producing nibbida and viraga, rather they are a causal outcome of your practice. So therefore Buddha particularly mentioned, you don't need to have even an intention, may dispassion arise in my mind, may disenchantment arise in my mind. There shouldn't have to be even such kind of a wish, such kind of an intention, because it is a dhammata to arise disenchantment and dispassion as a result of the practice. As a result of the proper investigation of all the different phenomena arising in the present moment. So slowly, you are developing that right understanding. So the right understanding is capable of developing, producing dispassion and disenchantment. So it's a natural result happens in this practice.
Question number 9 of 9 is the last question. And it's a interesting question. This is a general question. Dear Bhante, thank you for your valuable session. What do you think of participating or supporting other religions, such as Christianity, during this Easter weekend? If it helps expand and calm one's mind and support family members, is it considered a meritorious act? Is there any effect on our practice as a Buddhist with metta? That's the other question.
As a Buddhist, I mean, there is no such restriction that you can help anyone. All are human beings. And so you have to maintain kind of empathy towards everyone. You can coordinate with everyone. You can move with everyone. And they have their own beliefs, and we can respect them, those beliefs as well. So therefore, Buddha's teaching is a very, how to say, more democratic. We can say, making us more open. And as he mentioned in the Madhupindika Sutta, his teaching is leading us to a more peaceful state of mind, where we can be with anyone without an argument, without any debate. So when Dandapani asked from Buddha, what is the teaching that he advocates, what is the view he has, he simply say, my teaching is something which produce no argument, no debate with anyone. So other religions are there, other views are there. I don't need to argue. I don't need to sort of look down them. So you are much, in a way, approaching everything in a more mature way. So when one reaches, say, Sammaditthi, as we can see in the Paccanagatta Sutta, so very much like it's allowing the mind to be free, allowing the mind to be more open. And you can dwell with everyone peacefully, but without an attachment, without grasping, without holding on to anything, more and more peaceful, tranquil, open state of mind. So you can try.
So Bhante, that's the last question.
Right.
And I think because there's a retreat as well there, we can end the program for today.
Sure, yeah.
Today
I'm actually being in Kalalgoda and I'm continuing. And just after this, I hope to go back to Nissarana.
So to end the program, I would first...
One is asking what is the name of the sutta. The name of the sutta, I think he is referring, I have mentioned about the Chetana Karaniya Sutta. I'll just put the Sinhala name onto the chat. And similarly, I'll put the link to it. You can, but anyway, please, this is a Sinhala link. It's in the tipitaka.lk. You can read it. It's a kind of a causal reaction that Buddha is telling. Sometimes people refer it as dependent liberation. So the liberation, the release of the mind also is a kind of a dependent process. It's a causal process. Everything happens. So if this is available properly, then it will be taking to the next level. When we are developing that, it will taking to the next level. So that is typically highlighted as the open-aika. The quality of the open-aika available in Dhamma refers this, which is taking us to the next level. So we are developing right moment at this moment, continuing the practice. So that practice leads us to the next level.
Thank you, Bhante.
Yeah.
So to end the program, I would first like to pass our merit and thank Bhante for his valuable time, even with the busy schedule at the monastery. To all the supporters of this program, both seen and unseen, and to the participants for joining today to practice and share their questions. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Theruvan Saranai.
Yeah, Theruvan Saranai.